Hello, true believers. This is Vendetta again, and what I'm going to do is another police video. And I was actually going to do this police video yesterday, but it was April 1st, so I had to do my usual April 1st video. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. Anyway, this is one of those police videos that I usually do because over here in the Philippines, when you live here in the Philippines as long as I have, you're talking about, almost 15 years of living here, ever since 2007 when I retired. I retired like 2006. And after, what is it, 25 years in America, I came here. And there's usually, when it comes to crime over here in the Philippines, it usually kind of falls into like three or four categories. First category is like the inside job. It's where you have a maid or a driver or a houseboy, and usually what they'll do is they'll steal from you or they'll murder you, or kind of like that one retired couple that came over here to the Philippines. Everybody said, "Oh, it's wonderful here. It's so cheap. You can get hired help, like live-in hired help for only X amount, for a cheap amount of money, as low as like $1 a day." Well, they come with their pros and cons, and if you're going to be hiring somebody that's that desperate that will work for that much, then you gotta have to sleep with one eye open. So that's probably one of the most common things. One of the most common crimes that you'll run into is inside jobs. If you have like a house helper, so they're usually going to be involved if anything happens, if anything goes missing. And the only way to avoid the inside jobs is don't hire a driver, don't have anybody inside your house that you don't know, that you can't trust. And there's really nobody you can trust here in the Philippines. I mean, you can't. I'm the only one pretty much that you can trust in the whole entire country. You can't trust relatives, you can't trust friends, especially when it comes to money. If they have something that they need from you, you can't trust them. So number one is that you'll probably run into the most is inside jobs. Okay, if somebody comes in your home and breaks in, it's usually an inside job. But depending on your neighborhood, if you're in an exclusive gated community, then you're not going to run into this second crime, which is kind of like petty crime. You're talking about opportunistic crime like pickpocketing or hold up or stealing. So those are kind of like opportunistic petty crime. Then the other crime that you'll run into is like scams. Scams come in different forms here in the Philippines. The most common one is like the taxi scam, the 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 airport scams where they'll put a bullet or plant some kind of contraband in your luggage and detain you, and then you'll have to pay your way out of it. Some kind of those scams, those kind of scams. And then there's like the business scams where they'll ask you to invest and then you'll never see from them again, or if you buy something and then the what you get is nothing what you paid for. So, or then they got these phishing scams. And the then of course over here we have in the news that what we're going to be seeing here is what you're going to be that's pretty common, that's going to be becoming more and more common as more people get more desperate, is police crimes. Okay, and these are crimes perpetuated by police. They could include anything from rape, kidnap for ransom, stealing, a fraud, like I've already touched up on it, cybercrime, extortion, blackmail. It's like murder for hire. So that's where the police come in, and they do a lot of these especially you're talking about if you're going to be involved in, if you're going to be living here in the Philippines, and for your safety, there's going to be a large percentage of these of the police are going to have drug addiction, because over here in the Philippines, they're what the first priority that money goes to is vices. It never goes to their needs. It always go to vices first. When it comes to vices, you got gambling vice, you've got alcoholic vice, you've got a drug vice, you've got womanizing vice, and then you've got like cigarette vice. So it always goes to vices first, tattoo vices. So when it comes to money and when it comes to gambling or drugs or alcohol or smoking or womanizing, those kind of vices, prostitution vices, those cost a lot of money. And how else are the police going to get those kind of money for those vices? Because they suffer, like all Filipinos, especially police, because they're Filipinos also, they suffer from those vices also. Well, how are you supposed to do it if you're a police and you only make 8,000 pesos a month? You're making anywhere from like $200, $300, $400, $600 a month. When it comes to those vices, I mean, gambling alone, how are you supposed to gamble when you don't have any money? Yeah, well, obviously, the natural thing, of course, is to resort to these extrajudicial activities, like extrajudicial killing, murder for hire, scamming, extortion, all those kind of things. So they kind of resort to those kind of crimes, and a lot of them do. It's especially if they'll pull you over and it's bribing. It's pretty much part of the culture, and if it's done well and if it's done right, if it's done reasonable, everybody kind of moves on and it kind of goes unreported. What's becoming more and more common now, especially as things get more desperate, especially during this pandemic. I mean, things are probably getting more desperate already because of things are more expensive now, and a lot of people, because of social media and because there's more things that people want, and they're gonna have more expenses, so they have to resort to more serious crimes for bigger payoffs. So they have to. So here's an example where we have, if you look at over here, we've got the title of this. I'll translate it to English. It says here we got 13 police. They have been like these cases have been filed against them. Several cases have been filed against them, and including stealing, torture, and rape. So let's go into the video and we'll see this. So this is 13 police. I'll just translate it as we go.
13 pulis naman mula sa Cebu City ang nireklamo dahil sa pagnanakaw at
So we got 13 police in Cebu City that have been filed cases against them for stealing,
panorture ng isang babae,
torturing a woman, a girl. They tortured a girl.
Bago po niyan, isa pang babae ang dinala naman umano nila sa isang motel at hinalay. Naritong...
And then there's also, so they have a separate girl that they took to a hotel and raped her. So we got one girl that they tortured, they robbed, and then they tortured. And then they said there's another girl that they brought to a hotel and raped. So we got police over here that's raping and then torturing and robbing. So let's go into what else the news report says.
Report.
ang mga pulis na dapat sanay umuhuli sa mga masasamang loob sila ngayong nakadetain sa Cebu City.
So normally it's the police that are catching the bad guys. Well, now they are the bad guys being detained in Cebu City.
Kwento ng isa sa mga biktima biglang dumating sa kanilang bahay ang ilang pulis mula sa Sawang Calero Police Station.
She said, so this is the victim. She said that all of a sudden the police from this police station came to her house.
Noong March 26.
On March 26.
Nang hindi raw makita ang hinahanap, ninakaw ng mga pulis ang ilang mamahaling gamit at cellphone.
So they were searching a house and they were looking for expensive items to steal, like cell phones and gadgets and jewelry.
Isinama pa raw siya sa presinto at tinorture hanggang sa pinakawalan noong March 29.
So they brought her to the police headquarters and they tortured her and they beat her up until she passed out. So and then here March 29. So that's March 26. Here's one on March 29. You know what? So I don't know why. So there's two separate dates, March 26 and March 29. So here we go. What does she says?
Because walay reason.
Okay, this is in Bisaya, so I'm gonna have to try to figure out what she's saying. And there's some Tagalog, there's some Bisaya, But for what she's saying, they just came into her house without any reason. Okay, so I'm reading what it says here. Something na hindi nakaturuan because walang reason. So they have no reason to come to her house. Sa boy tapos na lang gagawain. And then they just came to her house and they'll just accuse you of anything. And that's just how easy for them to say. They'll just accuse you of a crime or a wrongdoing without any proof or without any way of substantiating it. So they have a reason to rob this lady, to rob whatever she has in her house.
Bago iyan, isa pang
So she was just saying that you can just be accused for no reason is what she was saying. The police just came to her house, started robbing her and accusing her of a crime but she didn't commit.
babae ang umano'y pinagdakawan ng mga pulis na pumunta sa kanilang bahay noong March 9.
Okay, March 9th, she says there's this woman, and then she said there's the police that came to her house also.
Nagaanap umano sila ng baril at nang
They said they were looking for firearms,
walang makita tinangay ang kanyang
and once they didn't find any firearms,
pera, mamakaling gamit at alahas.
once they didn't find any firearms, they went ahead and robbed her of jewelry, money, and other expensive items in her house. So probably like gadgets, cameras, laptops. I mean, hell, they'll even take your router if they can use it. So let's go into the.
Pinag-withdraw pa umano ang biktima ng 170,000 pesos at
So she says they also took her to her bank and asked her or forced her to withdraw 170,000 pesos. Now this is kind of a impossible or challenging situation because you're there at the bank and you're being forced to withdraw 170,000 pesos. And what do you tell the teller, it's like, hey, can you call the police? I'm being forced by these people to take out 170,000 pesos to give to them because they're extorting me for money. And the problem is, it's like, who do you call when it's the police that are extorting money from you, that are forcing you to take out money to give to them? So this is of course, if you're in that situation, you're more worried about your life, especially they're probably blackmailing you or threatening your life. So you're at a point where your life is more important than money. So of course you're going to comply. But what do you do when you tell the teller, it's like, can you help me and call the police? Well, they are the police so you can't really call the police. And what are your options when the police are the ones that are robbing you, that are blackmailing you, that are threatening you, threatening your life with their guns to withdraw money? And of course you're going to withdraw money, especially if you're a woman.
dinala sa isang motel. Hinalay din umano siya ng isa sa mga pulis.
So after that, to add insult to injury, after she was robbed, after they took her jewelry, she was taken to the bank to withdraw 170,000 pesos. After they got their money, then they took her to a hotel and raped her. So this is 13 police that did that to these two women in this March period in Cebu City.
Kabuuan 13 pulis ang sinampahan.
So 13 police filed a case against them, and 11 are detained, and 2 are in hiding right now, or they haven't caught them yet. So 13 policemen were filed cases against.
Ang patong-patong na reklamo. 11 ang nakadetain habang at large ang 2 pa. Relieved din sila, pati na ang kanilang chief of police.
So all 13 were relieved from their jobs, 11 are detained or they're supposed to be in jail, and 2 are at large still. They're trying to find them, and their chief of police has been suspended. I don't know what that means, if he's fired, but he's been suspended, their chief of police.
Hindi naman pinayagan ng media na ma-interview ang mga sangkot na police.
The media wasn't allowed to go in there and interview the police, was what was said. So we just have to just go on the commentary over here. So is this like this police major Alejandro Pescante here is saying that he's saying that he knows that there's a lot of people that are being victimized like this, but not, like this, and not only in Cebu City, is what he was saying.
Not only in Cebu City. Emil Sumangil, GMA News.
So that's pretty much in a nutshell what you have to worry about. If you're going to be here in the Philippines, if you're going to be staying here, if you're going to be living here, then what you're going to be your big concern, not just in the major cities, as you can see here in Cebu City, probably in the major cities, is the police that are going to be committing these kind of crimes. There's really not much you can do. We probably will go into discussion about what are your options, or what is the idea behind when it comes to these kind of things, that the police are going to be committing these kind of crimes, and you have to be aware of it, and it's going to become more common and common, and it's, as you could say, as you saw, they'll even shoot other police for when it comes to money, and if they need money or they need more money. So it's possible that they can come in, if they can come into these two women's houses and just rob them, and for no cause, no warrant, no, they haven't done anything wrong, or they haven't then rob them, and then one of them was raped, then they could pretty much do this to anybody. And it's, like I said, it makes it very difficult, it makes it very challenging, is because they're the police themselves, and they, of course, they've already threatened them. Like, I know firsthand experience of what it's like to be threatened, your lives and your family are threatened. Of course you're going to be complying when they're saying that, like, what's going to, it's like your life is more important than money, so what you're going to do is give them money. So, because it's like when you don't have your life, then there's really nothing you can do with the money, even if you have it. So that's what they're counting on and depending on. Is that good or bad? Obviously it's bad, but when you're talking about the Philippines police over here, to them it's not good or bad. This is just how they make a living. This is their way of life. This is culture, especially right now. After my experience in prison, there's so much drug addiction going on. Like I said, when you're dealing with the police, it's safe to say, or for your sake, since you only have one life, that the police that you're going to be running into, or that you should be scared of, what kind of percentage of them are going to be have an addiction problem, then for your safety, you better assume that all the police have 100% addiction. Because if you're thinking that, then then you'll know what, when people are addicted to drugs, and a lot of them are, a majority of them are, a high percentage of them are, in your situation, if they could put you in a really dangerous situation because of their drug addiction. When people are addicted to drugs, they have no moral compass, no conscience. It's just their drug addiction. They're just looking for their next fix, and they're not thinking about tomorrow, what's going to happen to them, if they're going to go to jail, if they're going to, or what crimes they're going to commit, so they can get the money or rob the money from you. If they don't have the money, then they're just going to take or rob the money from you, even if you have, whether you committed a crime or not. So it's kind of spilling over to, because it's easier to victimize innocent people for police than for example drug dealers, because they have so much experience when it comes to the police, that it's harder for police to victimize other criminals when it's easier for them to victimize innocent people, especially innocent women. So from them, they can threaten them, and they're not going to report it. So imagine how many women or innocent people that these police have done this to. If they've done this to these, this is not the first time they've done this. If they've done this to these women, they've done it before to other women. But like I said, here in the Philippines, people are scared to come forward and file a case against them, because their lives are in danger, because maybe they'll ask, okay, can you help me out? And they'll talk to other police and say, can you murder for hire these people, can you take care of this case, and I'll take care of your case for any time in the future. So those are the things you have to keep in mind, and you have to worry about when you're dealing with people here in the Philippines. And especially when it comes to the police, they can accuse you, as you could see, like these women, they can accuse you of anything, and you're going to be in the same situation. They're going to be, from women, as you could see, they were not, this is becomes extra dangerous or double dangerous for women, because for men, they can pretty much, all they want is probably just money. But from women, they can not only can they take money and rob them. For men, they can only rob men and take money from them and extort money from them. But from women, as you could see, not only can they rob them and extort money from them, they can also rape them. So, I mean, what would you do if that happened to you? Would you file a case against them, and then you have to worry about your not only the safety of your own safety, but the safety of your family, because the police, they're killers, they're murderers, they'll kill women and children. And I've shown you videos, I've done videos, and there's reports of them killing killing women and children just to save, so the case will be dismissed. So if you got no complainants, if you got nobody filing a case against you because they're dead, then the case is closed. So that's kind of what the hard part about is. So you're kind of in a situation where if you're poor and they could easily find you or access you, or if they went to your house one time, they can, if you file a case against them, they can go to your house again. And then what do you do? Is it better for you not to file a case against them? And then you kind of run into the same problem, and they can always go back to you. If you don't file a case against them the first time, they might not come back to you now, but they can come back to you later because they already did that. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So we have to probably talk about it, probably talk extensively in the next live stream what to do in these kind of situations, because they happen all the time. There was back in 2016, there was this one Korean businessman I'll have to do a separate video on that, where the case is still ongoing, where he was kidnapped and ransomed, and he was killed the same day, and then he was ransomed after he was kidnapped, and the wife paid out $100,000, 5 million pesos, and she was asking for proof of life. And then always the rule is, you never ask for proof of life, but we'll talk about that extensively probably in the next live stream. So, but in this video, I just wanted to say that here we have another video that's on the news about the police committing crimes, robbery, rape, torture, extortion, blackmail, and because they have to pay for most likely 99.9% to 100% because of their vices, especially their drug addiction. And if you're like the police and you're involved in a lot of these kind of drug trafficking situations, then you will definitely you're gonna have the police are gonna have drug issues also, and they're gonna need money for their drug addiction, and and for their other vices, and nothing's gonna stop them from extorting money or stealing money or robbing money, not only from innocent people. And while they're at it, why stop at robbery? Go ahead and continue with the rape anyway. So rape by police here in the Philippines, robbery here in the Philippines, and like I said, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that will stop them. There's nothing in their conscience, there's nothing in their morals, there's nothing in their humanity that's going to stop them, especially because of their addiction. When you have an addiction to drugs, and that's probably what they'll say, oh, because we were high and we needed to get that's why we did it. It's like, usually to do these kind of crimes, you have to have a certain courage, and usually your courage can come from drugs. But at any rate, that's just kind of my speculation. And good thing, the more power for these women that they came forward and filed a case against the police. But we don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it gets whitewashed because somebody got to them and said, okay, if you value the safety of your family, then you won't pursue the case. If that happens, then you can't really blame them, and then the cycle continues. What you need to worry about is you need to know it. You need to know this. So once you know it, you know what their method, you know what their modus operandus is, what their motives are, then you could use this information to keep yourself safe and your family safe and your friends safe. Anyway, this is Bebot Only, talking about culture here in the Philippines, especially the police culture, especially in these times where it becomes more desperate. Yes, not only the people here are poor and desperate, but because of their vices, you also have the police with their own vices. And what makes them dangerous is they could use their authority to commit crimes, and it becomes a challenge to do anything about it, or even becomes even harder to avoid it, especially you're not doing anything wrong. And what are you going to do? It's not like you're just living at home minding your own business and they come to your home. What are you going to do about that? Anyway, well, if you let me know what you think. What should you do? And what are your options? What are the solutions? What would you do if you were in their situation? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. This is Bev Only. Thanks for watching.